I'm going to talk a little bit about Wall Street. The topic is Wall Street and emerging economies and how that affects the future of Bitcoin, how the two work together. And I'm also going to talk a little bit about regulation, because I think regulation is important, and it's something that I have opinions about as somebody who's been a regulated financial professional for 22 years. I started in the investment industry a while ago. I worked at Morgan Stanley. I focused on emerging markets like China and India at the time. And then I started my own firm, which in 1994 became the first investment firm to use the World Wide Web and the first full-service investment firm to use the internet. So that was interesting. And I see a lot of parallels with Bitcoin. I've seen this happen before. I've seen this kind of excitement, and I've seen this kind of growth and this kind of fast growth. And I'm so lucky that I kind of get another chance to do something in a really amazing and transformative, significant, disruptive, fast-growing space, just like the internet. Some have said 94. I would say this is more like internet in 1992. This is really early stage. Bitcoin is in its very earliest stages, and it's very exciting. So the perspective that I have coming from kind of Wall Street in the broad sense of being in the financial services business is something that is worth looking at, because I think there is a lot of interesting things that will happen as this technology becomes more mainstream and is more adopted. And one thing is the money. We are true believers, and I'm as passionate about Bitcoin as you are, most likely. We're all very passionate about this space, but sometimes what we forget is perspective. And to put it in perspective, you have to look at comparison in terms of asset size compared to other things in the global financial markets. And in those terms, Bitcoin is still very, very small. At a market cap of $7-8 billion, it is tiny. In the dot-com boom, there was single companies that failed that had larger market caps. Inktomi was $25 billion, and that was in 1990s dollars. So Pets.com, I think, was equivalent to a good chunk of Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is still very tiny, and we have a lot of people who talk about Bitcoin's going to destroy the banks, it's going to destroy Goldman Sachs. Jamie Dimon is terrified of Bitcoin, and I agree with what Andreas just said an hour ago, which is they think of us as a lemonade stand. It is not something they view as a threat, and mainly it's because of the size. So Jamie Dimon, for example, runs a firm that ultimately has control over $1 trillion. So he has a guy who reports to a guy, reports to a guy, reports to a guy who runs a little tiny division called Internal Alternative Investments, and that may have 100 funds, each of which is larger than every Bitcoin on planet Earth. So we have a ways to go. I absolutely believe it will be disruptive, but just like the internet didn't instantly put out of business all of the newspapers, it would be a process, and we need to walk before we run.